You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. You guys, I am extremely excited to welcome Natalia Ohanesian to the podcast today. She is a serial entrepreneur. She has been in the game for 6 years and she's only 27 years old. She is a consultant now. She is a strategist. She's launched multiple companies. She's also kind of an extension of the How I See It podcast family now. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like this is like 4 months in the making.
Yeah, I know. And it was perfect timing too, because I think if we would have filmed this probably like a few months ago, I would have introed you as the founder of your old company. And now I left it off specifically because I know that it's not really in the picture anymore.
Yes.
Bipty was your app, and I'm going to have you get into all things because it is one of the most impressive stories I've heard in a while. I was talking to my best friend on the phone actually before we started recording, and we were just talking about how there's very few people that, not to be mean, but like that we're impressed by in their 20s. Cause like, as you know, like I'm 28, we are pretty much the same age. So there's very few people that I feel like I'm inspired by and that I look up to, just because I feel like there's not a lot of 20 something year olds like launching businesses and stuff. And I just find you to be incredibly smart, incredibly inspiring. So please get into it and share like how you got to where you are, how you launched your first business. Weirdly enough, me and Natalia both went to University of San Diego and didn't know each other there. And I know that you started your company in college. So please take us back.
Well, first, the feeling is so mutual. There's like so much mutual respect and inspiration. Let's go back. So I started my first business when I was 21. My senior year of college.
So insane. So you were launching a business and I was depressed. Great.
I love that. Because you would have been graduated by then, right?
I think
a year ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So it didn't start off as like, I'm going to make this business. It was very much, I have a problem and I have an idea or a solution. And that's like always how I've been growing up. I've always had lots of different ideas. And then it would almost seem like maybe 6 months after I have the idea, it exists in the world. And I had this problem, which is I want to wear beautiful dresses, but I don't want to spend a ton of money because I'm only going to wear them once.
Yeah.
And so my solution was, well, I share clothes with my friends and my sisters. So why don't we just do it on a really big scale? And over time, like I just had this itch I needed to scratch, and like one thing led to another, and this curiosity built, and I just kept going and going and going. And all of a sudden I find myself in San Francisco with a team of 5, launching this app, raising money, and being like the quote unquote tech startup founder.
That's insane.
It is insane because that's not how it started.
I mean, take me back a little bit. So like you have this idea, you're in college, you're in business school. Are you just like, you wake up one day and you're like Googling like, how do you start an app, or what did it start as?
You just end up going down this like it's a scavenger hunt. You're curious and you're constantly looking for answers. And for me, it was like, I have this problem. There's got to be a way to solve it. So like I'm standing in the shower. I do my best thinking in the shower. And I'm just like showering and thinking about like, well, what if we did it like this? Okay, well, if you're borrowing from someone else's closet, there's the risk of damages. Okay, how do I solve for damages? Okay, we just solved for damages. Now we need this insurance policy. What is the math going to look like to do that? Let me go on Google and like look for some inspiration. It's just like this boom, you know it. You're just...
And this is before ChatGPT. This was in college days. We could figure that out in an hour now.
Literally 25 seconds. Like I pull out, and I think now building this next company and literally doing anything in life, it is so easy because you just have this person who has all the information in the world. It reduces all the friction.
But back then you didn't have that.
But back then I didn't have that.
And that's what I think is so impressive. And that's what I think is insane. I know to you, it's like your brain. So to you, you're like, I don't know. I just did it. I was in the shower. But like a lot of people are intimidated by that. And that's why they don't start companies. So like, do you think it was just like you had this like entrepreneurial wiring? Do you think that like you just had like the confidence to execute, or really do you think it was just like, well, I have this problem and I need to solve it for myself?
It honestly is that. Like, I just was so curious. And I didn't make it into this whole thing. I wasn't like, I'm going to build this unicorn startup $1 billion business. It was just like, I really want to wear beautiful dresses. There's got to be a way. And I think I love the thrill of creation. And so when I'm going down the journey, it's just like I'm getting all these dopamine hits as I like problem solve and find answers, and you get some traction, some validation. We started as an Instagram page.
Wow.
Like, it wasn't an app. There was one person's closet on campus that I was obsessed with. And I was like, if I can get her closet and like wear her dresses, that would be sick.
I love that.
And that's it. And I threw it in a few group texts. I like made an Instagram page. It was called The Look at the time. And I just said the look _SD because University of San Diego. And I threw up a bunch of my dresses, put the link in a group text. And within like 2 minutes, I had my first rental. I had a DM. It was very bare bones. And then you just grow organically and naturally. But I think that's where maybe some people do get intimidated. They like envision so much stuff and it becomes overly complicated and too big for anyone to handle.
Yeah.
Just start like very small.
I think that people almost use it as like a way to procrastinate too.
Yeah.
They like sit down and they want to write out the entire business plan of like how it's going to go, what they need to do, whatever. And sometimes you just kind of have to start before you get too scared or too stuck. Because then when you think too far ahead, you're like, fuck, there's so many things that could go wrong. I mean, take the Frame, for instance. If you guys don't know, the Frame downtown is the studio I just launched and where we're recording now from.
And it's beautiful. It
you.
looks amazing.
Thank you. But like, if I would have thought about like all the like, even just for this little room we're sitting in alone for the pod studio, if I would have thought like, well, what happens if the cameras don't work the way they're supposed to? Like, I would have gotten a lot more stuck and like been in more of a freeze, because I would have been like, that sounds really hard. But I was like, fuck it. It's gotta be easy. Like, I'll figure it out. As I'm like calling you crying, like I had to push back all the recordings because I couldn't figure out the cameras. You have to kind of start with the idea and the first executable, because if you think too far, you're going to get really overwhelmed.
100%. If I had all the information that I know now back then when I was starting, to be honest, like I would not have started.
It would have been a lot scarier.
I would have been like, wait a second, this is impossible. And I think I was just on the phone with my sister on the drive down. She wants to start her own consulting business now.
Love.
And she's like seen how much I've grown in such a short time. And she's like, I want to do that too. I can leave my job that I'm miserable at. Like, you've kind of paved the way. Let's go for it. And she's intellectualized everything and planned out everything. And she's run all the numbers. And I'm like, you are weighing two in your head. You just need to go start talking to people.
Yeah.
Start to understand what are their problems. I always say this, the path will unfold as you walk it. You do not know the path or the journey or the map. Like, you need to just start moving and it will all kind of unfold and unravel for you.
When you plan too much, you're not accounting for like the pieces you're missing. And I think it's very like me, like how I want it to go, versus like, what does your consumer or your customer or your client need from you?
You need to be like very opportunistic and flexible. You got to be adaptable. There's so much to learn and leverage and opportunity in every small thing. But if you get into your head or you're like, this isn't exactly how I planned it, then you rob yourself from all like the magical opportunity.
Yeah, 110%. And I think this is something I just love about you, and it's very rare. You never really say no. Like, I've like run so much shit by you and you're just like, yeah, we'll make it work. Like, yeah, we'll do it. And I'm assuming that's what got you to a place where you were literally 21, 22 when you started the app?
Yeah.
21?
Yeah, 21.
21. How did it get to a point where it's like, okay, we have the Instagram, we're starting to, rent stuff, to like, I'm actually making money now. I'm about to graduate. I think I'm going to go for this full send.
So it wasn't as linear as that. We had COVID.
Okay. Yeah.
Right when I graduated. So I had all this traction. We were getting DMs and rentals every couple minutes. It kind of just like spread like wildfire across the USD campus.
Love.
And I was like, wait, I'm going to do this. Like, all my friends are applying to jobs and I'm like, I want to pursue this thing. And then March hits and we all get evacuated or whatever. We all go home. And I was like, interesting. But again, there's opportunity in everything. So basically we're in this like 1 year period of lockdown. I could just like be with my computer all the time. And I had a year to get my ducks in a row and organize everything, learn all these things for the first time. How do I code? Who do I need to talk to?
I'm laughing because you're like, how do I code? The audacity you just like have and like the confidence you have where you're like, how do I code?
I'm very much like well, there's got to be an answer. And then obviously you go down the process, you realize you're not the right person for the job. You go hire a coder. But the beginning stages like that, those months where I was on YouTube learning myself, like the back end of how computers work and coding, that gave me the vocabulary to be able to have those conversations. But what was cool about that period was I went and I had a job offer. So I started working full time, but fully remote. Oh. So I had my like work laptop open. Yeah. I had my personal laptop open.
Yeah.
And then I had like 6 hours of a work day to learn all about startups and how I can bring this to life. And then when the timing was right and COVID was over, then I was like, you know what, I want to go all in on this. And that's when I
moved.
I let go of the job and really went all in.
Wow. So you moved to San Francisco and you just like pack up, show up. Was there like a plan?
No. It was an insane story. So I moved to San Francisco with 1 week notice. And I put my twin size mattress from college in the back of my Jeep Wrangler and I drove up. And I slept on the floor for 3 months without a bed frame, just with my little twin size mattress.
Fuck up.
It was such a vibe and honestly like one of the most cozy, best eras ever because I didn't need anything. I was there on a mission. I had my laptop and that was my best friend. That's all I needed. I had my team and I was in like the greatest city and environment to create what I wanted to create. And every day, when I tell you, like, it was so electrifying. Like, I was just so energized by the city. And it was like rose-colored glasses. Like, I saw everything in pink.
So when you say team, like, you had already at this point, like, chosen people to start helping you build this app out.
Yeah. I was a couple years into the journey. I had a few viral moments on social media. We had users. We're pretty deep in. I didn't have to do any recruiting. All my team like kind of came
That's amazing.
through the community, which is exciting because you're building with people who are so aligned, who really understand the problem, and who like my team became my closest friend.
It was what probably gave you the confidence to be able to throw the mattress in the back of your car. It's validating that people are reaching out, wanting to be a part of something because they see it's going to be successful.
Yes, it's one thing to be a follower. It's one thing to be a customer spending your hard-earned money. And then it's another thing to be like, no, I want to bring this to life with you. Like, I believe in your vision. And like, I'll be honest, people were not being paid very well. You know, that we just didn't have them. It's a startup. Like,
I mean, you were like 23 at this point.
Yeah, literally. But at the same time, like, there was so much passion and purpose and people were growing and it was just like such an electric environment to create in every day. Like our Slack channel is insane. It was so fun. And you're just like creating with your besties.
I love that. The fact that like when you love what you do and like you believe in something, it's not as hard to grind. Like it's not as hard to like really push and take these risks. And I think sometimes people feel stuck or they get a little bit scared, maybe because they don't love it as much as they should. What do you think keeps people stuck? Like, I think there's a few reasons, but I think one of them is that you like actually don't love it and believe in it as much as you think.
Absolutely. I think one is that. I think another, your body is misaligned. Like your body knows there's a misalignment and you're trying to push something forward, but it's not in integrity with what you need and what's serving you at this era of life. And you know, when I first started this company, like when I was 24, 25 building it, now I'm 27, you evolve. At every phase, you have to ask yourself, like, is this something that's serving me? And I think I felt that towards the end. I'm like, I don't know if this, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but I don't know if this is like right. And I think when you feel stuck, I'm a very like spiritual person. It's the universe telling you that like you're not in the right space.
Yeah.
Like you got to make a shift. You have to address something and face it and get in, follow your gut, whatever it is, and then get in flow again. Because when you're in flow and you're like, you're just, you're flowing, you cannot be stopped. And it's magical.
Yeah.
Things just happen.
Yeah. I think also too, like, you don't mean like misaligned, like maybe it's not the right idea. It can be a misalignment in the sense of like, maybe like there's a mental block, like you don't believe you can, or maybe you don't believe you're deserving, or maybe you're going about it from like this very like rigid scarcity mindset type place.
Yeah. What I was constantly faced with is like half of this is business acumen and figuring out how the heck to run a business. The other half of it is like figuring your own self out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And all the mental stuff that comes with that. There's so much self-doubt. You're like on fire and having so much fun and building with your friends and like creating something and getting great feedback. And then you also have these insane lows of like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Did I just spend 4 years of my life on this? Like, is this going to work? Are we going to make money? Like, there's so much confusion, so much doubt, imposter syndrome. And you have your own things you need to work through. And one of the things that I'm working through right now is like, and you're in a perfect example of this, is unapologetic self-expression. I want to be able to speak and articulate with ease, especially when it comes to social media.
I was going to say, you just mean on camera, right? Because you are like the most articulate person ever.
I know I can be. That's why I get so frustrated, because I feel like I'm not, when I turn on the camera, there's some sort of block. But when I'm with my friends, obviously it flows. And so I've been doing a lot of work around that with my life coach. But going back to your main point, like there's so many highs and lows, and you really have to figure out your mental shit to be able to do this.
Well, 100%. It's a mental health journey. Even with like the struggle to show up on camera, you don't have enough reps yet. You just don't have enough reps yet. That's all. I think a lot of people stop because they don't think that, or they didn't expect that running a business was going to be as hard as it is.
Oh my God.
And so I think people stop because they're like, okay, this is so uncomfortable. This is so hard. This must not be for me. When in reality, it's like, no, like that's it. That's how it feels. It's crazy. You just don't have enough reps yet. When you get out of stuck and force yourself to actually like just make a decision. And I think that goes back to our conversation in the beginning, which is like, just stop overthinking and do the first thing.
Yes.
To like get unstuck. But once you're there, like you have to kind of realize that it's going to take repetition to feel more comfortable.
Yes. How do you get unstuck? I think the short answer is, and it's insane, just take action.
Yeah.
Like small baby action. My boyfriend always says this, the ball gets heavier the longer you hold it. And so if I'm just carrying this thing that's keeping me stuck, I am going to be weighed down by this. But if I can just like start moving it forward, tiny little centimeter every day, we get some momentum going, and slowly you become unstuck. And oftentimes when I'm stuck in business, sometimes I go to other parts of my life to try to get that feeling of momentum and action. And then that translates back into business.
Oh, that's good. Like kind of removing the charge in a way by doing something in a different part of your life. I picture as you're speaking, like almost like drowning in quicksand, and how if you're like moving too quick and freaking out and like looking everywhere, like it's going to get worse. But if you just like slowly start to take action, try to pull yourself out, like think calmly, like it's actually easier. Again, back to our point in the beginning, like when you're thinking too much about all the things that could go wrong or all the things you have to do, no wonder you're stuck. You just mentioned like there were moments of self-doubt. There were moments of imposter syndrome. Like, what do you think it was around? Like, what were the things that popped up for you when like the entrepreneurial mental health mirror decided to show?
Literally everything. Like for me, a big one was fundraising. Like Excel is not my forte. Numbers are not my forte. And I had to learn how to get comfortable around that and get really, I'm learning in real time, but I'm also pitching this business to try to raise millions of dollars. So it's like, it's very tough. Social media was another really big one that I felt imposter syndrome around. I feel imposter syndrome every day. Yesterday, I'm making a sleepwear brand now. I went up to a manufacturing fabric mill, someone who's going to make my fabric. I walked into a room of 4 people over the age of 45 who had lifetime of experience in this space. I literally started this 60 days ago. I know nothing. I'm here alone. I look like I'm 19. Everyone says like you're 27. I literally look like a teenager, and you feel that energy when you walk in. And I felt in that moment of like, wow, I feel like an imposter. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no gauge on if they're overcharging me, undercharging me. I don't know what fabric I'm looking for. I don't know how to describe what I'm looking for. And just being like, you know what? This is about to be slightly a shit show. It's okay. Totally fine. But this is the rep I need to have. And the next time I do this, it will not be a shit show.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about this because I think that a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get rid of imposter syndrome? I'm like, you don't, if you're human. And I promise you I am. I feel it every day. But I think there is this level of like acting a bit.
Yes.
Like there
100%.
is, like you have to kind of show up as like a confident version of yourself and kind of in your head be like, well, I'm putting my poker face on so that they don't know that I don't know. And like, even I picture myself like walking into that meeting with you. And I almost think like there's a reframe that can happen because in that moment, if you can feel the energy from these people, like, oh, like she's young, she doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And as a woman and someone under 30, like you can feel that. And we get it all the fucking time. But I've learned to kind of like take that to my advantage. Yeah. And I think it's an opportunity to like prove someone wrong instead of taking it personally and taking it as like a validation of the imposter syndrome. It doesn't need to validate the imposter syndrome. It's just human to like doubt people as well.
Yes, that's so well said. And going back to there's an opportunity in everything. And you can either go in with, there's a couple routes you can take because you have choices. One is I can fake it till I make it. I can literally, and sometimes I do this, I'll put on a different persona and I'm like, what would my highest self do? What would the person who does have all this experience, you know, I'm like ChatGPTing myself. You are a world class with 500 years of experience, all the best of the bests. Or you can go in with, again, there's an opportunity. I don't know anything. I'm going to use this to my advantage as well. I'm going to ask lots of questions.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to spin it. But I think the most important thing is not to let that feeling overwhelm and not to be stopped by that feeling.
Also, I would argue that like asking questions and being curious and speaking on what you do know does come off as very smart.
True.
Like I think people are scared to show they don't know something when in reality, like whenever I don't know something, I immediately ask. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? I'm not trying to like figure out like the word they use. Like if I was in a fabric mill, like I know nothing about the language of a fabric mill. If he says something, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah. I'm going to be like, no, what does that mean? Like, what are you even talking about? If they get condescending, like not my problem. Like 100%. I'm curious. Like I want to do business. I'm launching this, whatever. Absolutely. And I think it is about like getting over the small things that get us like emotional. And business can be very emotional, especially when it's your idea and it's your thing. I mean, trust me, I get way too emotional about what I do. But there are moments where I think, again, when you're putting in reps, you start to like see like I have to be unemotional in this moment. And someone judging me or looking at me like I'm not capable or me not knowing something, like that's got to be not personal. Like I just have to keep pushing.
100%. And also, you know yourself. Like you're not being defined by this random person.
Something you do that I really love is that like when you don't know something, you immediately ask. I can like, we've worked together now for quite some time, but also like you really full, like 110% send on the things you do know. For instance, like, so context, me and Nat work together because Nat edits the pod reels for everything. And we come up with like hooks and really cool stuff together. She's just a great sounding board, period. But you didn't know anything about podcasts when we went into this, but I could tell how hard you worked and how intelligent you were and how much you were going to support me because you like full sent on the stuff you did know, which was like sending me like crazy Notion decks of like everything I needed to know and like setting up systems where you were like, this is what you need and this will give you more flow. And to me, like seeing like, oh, this girl's very good at this. If you have an opportunity to show strength when you don't know something, that goes like a long way.
I love that. Yeah, lean into what you got and like be curious about what you don't know. You don't need to act like you have it all buttoned up. Like anything creative, anything social media, I revert to you. I'm like, well, why is it like that? And you explain it to me. And I learned so much because of that. Yeah. And then same with like the other stuff. I'm like, well, with my background, this is what I got. So do your best with everything you're given. And maybe we pivot and that's okay too. Like I'm here for the ride. I'm here to learn. Yeah. And level up.
Well, that's what's so special about you. And that's why I really wanted you on the pod because like you have no problem like figuring it out and executing on ideas. And I know as like the app started to grow, and I'm assuming like the idea of like kind of selling or letting it go started to kind of come to a head. You decided to randomly take a turn and launch a merch company that was seen on Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy, randomly blew up, sold out. Like, you need to explain a little bit to the pod community, like this random merch moment you had, and like it went extremely viral.
It was a fun, crazy time. It was also one of the hardest times of my life, which was I launched this app. I had raised some money. Talk about misalignment. There was a huge misalignment in my body. And there was like not that passion and drive anymore with Bipti. I was burnt out. San Francisco did not have those rose-colored glasses anymore for me. It was a gray, dull city. There was this very quiet, and I didn't really tell anyone because it's a lot to process when you realize like I would almost compare it to like, you need to break up with the guy, but you don't want to break up with the guy. It was one of those.
But this one's wrapped in like your identity.
My identity, my success, failure, my team. People are getting paid, thousands of users, investors' money, like lots of different things to consider. And for a long time, I was like, not just like, maybe you need to take a little break. Maybe you need a little breather. And 1 week didn't solve it. Okay, now let's do 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks didn't solve it. Let's figure it out. So with all that being said, it's like a challenging time. And I kind of needed something else to just like light me back up. We're doing the app, but then on the side, I was like, we need some capital. We have outside lands coming up. What if we did like a fun little 30-day challenge to like spin up a company and sell some merch online?
Like get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, honestly, it was just like a distraction for myself, kind of a joke. And I needed to do it. And basically in like a week, we built out this whole business and launched these You're Healing, He's Balding hoodies. And I can tell you like the whole story behind how we came up with that as well.
Please.
Well, it was crazy because I was searching for this idea. I didn't know You're Healing, He's Balding. And the video that ended up going viral was me saying my ex-boyfriend was making fun of my silly little business. So I made these silly little hoodies to show him my business. And
wait, I love that.
And there, You're Healing, He's Balding. And like, that would seem like an overnight success, but really like that was 5 years in the making because I could build a Shopify page in 24 hours because I knew how to do it because I've spent all this. I did have relationships with people who could provide the merch. I did have a social media following. I knew how to make good content. I had an audience I could sell to and get feedback from. A really big part of this is when we started the hoodies, they weren't You're Healing, He's Balding. They were like some sort of random other saying. And we tested and we got all this feedback. And ultimately, like I went around San Francisco and put up a bunch of posters that said, I slept with my ex. And all I got was ... with a QR code. And I wanted it to be very like, what's going to get people to scan this? And so they scanned it. And I said, if I could get someone to purchase this merch for a random person on the street with zero context, then I have a business that I can actually do something with. And so we got someone to buy the hoodie, and that's all I needed. And I ended up purchasing like an order of 30 hoodies and then made the content, went super viral. Alex Cooper saw all the things. And then I had to fulfill the product. Like I had sold hundreds and hundreds of hoodies, but it was a pre-sale. Like I had no product. But I had the guy who was going to be able to get it done. So we got it done in like 3 weeks.
It's insane.
Made it happen.
It's absolutely insane. And I would honestly, like thinking about like the marketing strategy of everything and like, yeah, to your point, like this wasn't just like, I had a random idea and then it went viral.
Strategic.
Like to me, successful marketing is curating a strategy that people do not know is a strategy. That's very relatable.
Yeah.
For you, do you feel that way? And like, how do you go about strategizing in that way? Like, how can people start to, especially like people who want to start companies, who want to like expand their business, who are listening, like, how do you start to like think about strategy in that way?
Such a great question. Here's an example. There was no ex-boyfriend who was making fun of my silly little hoodie business, but there was the feeling of hundreds of my girlfriends and myself dealing with condescending assholes. And And it was rooted in like basically dating the 35-year-old who like doesn't want to commit, has Peter Pan syndrome. So like it was rooted in a very real experience. And I think people, when it comes to strategy, like they take it a little too literally. You need to zoom out a little bit and see what's working. Find the feelings that really resonate with so many people. And that's the beautiful thing about TikTok. Like I had a sounding board, hooks, messaging. We talk about this all the time. I really believe that like one part of it is branding and it's emotive, but then the other part of it is like human psychology. Like, can you connect with people? What are the emotions you need to pull at? And then how can you like communicate it in a way that's going to kind of catch their attention?
Yeah. It's like why influencer marketing works. Like it's why influencers exist. Yes. And I think being able to apply like the same strategies that influencers do, they're just being themselves and talking. Yeah. And I think if you apply that to your business and start to embody like the energy of an influencer while still being authentic, you can like curate a strategy that feels aligned with your belief system, but maybe is perfectly crafted in a way that's going to get people's attention.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you randomly have this moment where you're like, I'm going to start a merch company. It sells out. You're like, awesome. That's cool. You have this app at the same time. Yes. What was it that made you realize that it was time to walk away from your business? That's like really heavy and obviously really emotional.
Yeah. I think the hoodies were a really great success for me. And a great learning that my identity is not wrapped up in Bipti. I'm a business owner. I'm a creator. I'm an entrepreneur. That is my identity. And it can be in one bit. It's kind of like, okay, I don't love this guy. Like, I just like being in a relationship, or like there's someone else. I had this realization, like, this is not the only person in the world for me. Okay, this is not the only business in the world for me.
Well, it was like proof of concept for you. Like, I can start another business and successfully do it. I just did it in 30 days.
And then I was like, wait a second, this business is so freaking easy in comparison to the most complicated business that I decided to create right off of. It's a tech company. It's a peer-to-peer marketplace. I'm fundraising. I'm running a team. It's a logistics company. I don't know how to code. Like, I probably picked the hardest business I could have ever, as a 20-year-old, without knowing it. And I didn't make a hard decision then and there. I probably spent like 4 months thinking. And I slowly...
Well, grieving, I would say.
Yes, beautifully said.
Well, it's like to our breakup metaphor. It's like women grieve the relationship before they decide to end it. Like, It's the same thing. You had to grieve it.
I was grieving and I could not come to a decision. And anyone who knows me and was part of this process knows the amount of back and forth and the considerations. And it was a very slow fizzle. And finally, I decided I was ready to let it go. And when I decided I was ready to let it go, that's when people came to me with the opportunity to sell it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I feel like there's a flow here. I'm always looking for flow. And so I was like, okay, let me pursue that. Like, if I'm ready to walk away with zero, like, I might as well.
Well, I'm assuming it made like the grieving process a little bit easier because you're like, oh, this is validating. Like, it's a pretty bow to like tie the business with. Spoiler alert, you didn't sell.
I didn't sell.
Why did you not sell? 1? And 2, like, how did you grieve with that? Because that's not like a closure ending.
Yes.
That's a let go, and letting go is fucking hard.
It was hard. I think I had done the work going into the sale. I had already really let go of the business. I had detached failure from my identity and what that means. And so walking away from this business wasn't a failure. I had done all the work. It was actually a brilliant move. And I learned so much through that journey. And then there was part of me that was like, you can believe that for yourself, but now you have to tell everybody else, now get everybody's opinions about it. And so that's why I liked selling the business, because besides the payday, you get a nice little bow, you get a little feather in your cap, you sold your first business before 26.
That's the ego, right? Because you, at least like, you let it go, of course, but like if you could tell people like, but I sold it.
Yes.
But I sold it, your ego's protected.
100%. And I had to realize that. So the reason I wasn't going to sell it, and the reason I decided to go through the journey, was my dad, who's one of my biggest supporters and has always pushed me. He said, well, why don't you treat it like an MBA class? You just did your full 5-year journey as the best MBA you could have gotten. Let this be your last course, mergers and acquisitions. Go in, learn everything you can in real time, and at the end, you can decide if you want to sell it or not.
Totally.
And I really like that perspective because it again took the pressure off, and I didn't have to decide if I'm going to sell it or not. I'm just going to learn. And so I went into it. It was, again, you know nothing. I know nothing about mergers and acquisitions. I know nothing about due diligence and all these different documents. And that was a 4-month journey. And like every week we were getting extended, and every week there's a new term that comes up and a new question that delays the whole thing. And there was so much anxiety around it. And finally, I think I remember texting you, I'm like, we're going to close. Like, we're closing on Monday. It's going to be huge. I'm excited. And we get to Monday and they signed the contract, they sent it over, and it was my turn. And I just looked at it and I was like, you go through this whole journey and you arrive and you have to decide, do I even want to be here? Like, am I actually, was it the journey? Was it the climb, or is it the destination? And for me, I looked at the paper and I was like, you know what? I'm proud I got here, but these terms, it doesn't make sense to me. I was going to have to stay on board for a year and like do all this stuff. I had different visions, ambitions. I'm hungry, ready to go. And I was like, I think, to your point, I think this was a feather in my cap. I think this was ego. I don't think this is truly aligned. I got the knowledge. That's beautiful. Money will come, money will go. I don't need this. In fact, in some ways, it's going to hold me back and keep tying me to this company that I'm ready to just evolve and let go of. And so I did. And like, funny enough, now we're like selling the business still for assets, less of like selling the entity. And I'm still in discussions, and like those take months. But again, like the edge is off and I've moved forward.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks,
for that.
Girl. It was crazy.
No, it's really big of you to be able to like look in the mirror. And I think a huge part of entrepreneurship is being able to be brave enough to look in the mirror. And a lot of people can't do that. I mean, you listen to the pod every week. Yeah. I'm lucky you're forced to listen to the pod every week to clip it. And I think that a huge part of like life and healing and growing is being able to look in the mirror. But I would argue that you absolutely cannot have a successful business if you cannot look in the mirror in some regard. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to be like, this is for ego. This isn't actually like what I want and what I need.
I love that you're saying that, because like you said, business is a mirror. And so as you grow and you start to succeed, naturally the game of business will just reflect back to you your shortcomings, your defaults, like whatever it is. And typically it's not necessarily like some sort of business trick that you need to figure out to get to the next level. There's something inside of you that you need to figure out.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that my dad is an entrepreneur and business owner, and my mom is a life coach. So I get the best of both worlds in my home that I grew up with.
Yeah. It's so funny. Every time I remember that when we're talking, I'm always like, what a beautiful, like, so I can tell that, like, and you know, I think everyone grows up with shit and like everyone goes through hardship, but I really, when I speak to you about life, about business, about your relationship, about the way you go about business, I can tell, I'm just like, she was raised by someone who is emotionally tapped in and also business tapped in. And I think that's a really rare combo.
When we talk about like privilege and luck and things that are out of your control that leads to success, I think my parents are that for me. My dad and my mom, and like the skills that they have. And of course we all have our childhood stuff and all that.
You're now in the consulting space. You're launching a sleepwear brand, which is so chic. I'm sure this will be like, what is this? Like your fifth business or sixth business? I don't even know at this point.
I don't even know.
Do you ever feel, and this is just because of like, I've been so heady lately about this. Do you ever feel like we've done like too much too soon? Like,
oh my gosh.
We're not 30 yet, both of us. We've both launched multiple businesses now and are running that shit. I'm so proud of it and I love it, but I get a little heady sometimes and scared that like, fuck, like, did I do it all too soon? Is there more? Like, how do you continue? And I know this is a big belief of yours, is like optimization. Like, how do we continue to like optimize and grow and build and not get stuck in that way?
Yes, absolutely. It's such a good question. And I actually am happy you brought it up, because it's something that I have been thinking a lot about. So when I let go of the first business and walked away from that, a big part of that was like burnout and a lot of unhealthy practices. I was going nonstop. I was grinding. I had this belief in my head and I thought I needed to succeed. And I have now since let that go because I realized it's not what you actually need. I was of the belief that success comes to those who work hard. That was my belief. And so if I'm not where I need to be, it's because I didn't work hard enough. And so simply, as you follow the equation, you work harder and harder and harder. And that's beautiful because that's something I can control. It feels like it's within my grasp. I can just put in more effort and I'll get there. And it's not until your body breaks out in hives, which it did for me, and you're burnt out and you can't sleep. And you look in the mirror and you're like, you know, I am working my ass off. And there's no question in my mind of how hard I'm working. I'm outworking everybody else. And I'm still not where I want to be. And so if that's not true, something that I have been exploring now is success is actually really easy. And money, it just flows to me. And my work is a joy, and it's actually not hard at all. It's quite simple. And it's not challenging. It flows.
Yeah.
And I have been with that thesis the last 6 months with this new business, and it's flowing. And the consulting, it's flowing. I'm making so much money, like doing something that comes naturally. And it's a joy. I'm working with someone who's incredible and I'm inspired by. And for me, it's like a never-ending evolution. I will never arrive. I always will want to explore myself. I'll always have these new findings. And ideally, like I'll be at 50 or 60 and still be creating things in this world with these different epiphanies about myself as well. I think one part of it is like building something and bringing it into the world and serving others. And the other part of it is like I'm deepening my relationship to myself. I'm leveling up into the best version I could possibly be.
I agree with you 100%. It really full circles to our whole conversation, like putting in the reps, looking in the mirror, being able to like get unstuck, make hard choices, because like when you've experienced having to pivot once, that becomes less scary for me too, like having to like redefine and let my dream evolve, starting a new business, walking away from like what I thought was going to be everything to make room for something else. And then saying how beautiful that is. Like, I think when you've proven that life and entrepreneurship works in that way, you can kind of start to like let go of the reins a little bit in times where I'm feeling like extra heady and be like, well, yeah, that's kind of scary. Yeah. I don't think I could be doing the exact same thing I'm doing right now in 10 years. That sounds kind of boring, even though I love what I do. So I'm going to trust that I am going to evolve and that there are going to be natural pivots, but that's going to require me to continue to be honest with myself, continue to look in the mirror, continue to ask questions. And I think the commitment to that is like, to your point, how you like can show yourself self-love, especially as an entrepreneur, like give yourself room to like ask questions like, is what I'm doing still aligned?
It's a never-ending journey, and it's like really a journey for yourself.
Yeah.
And so you will naturally constantly evolve. And what I found was like, I was scared that if I would let this go, I wouldn't be able to create anything new. And no, like it's actually just my personality.
Yeah.
Like I'm just a curious person, always looking for solutions, and I am audacious enough to think that I could do it myself.
Yeah.
It's maybe kind of crazy, to be honest. Like maybe it's idiotic, but also like it works.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think I've always been under the belief too that like if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it.
Totally.
So like might as well try.
Well.
What are 3 things you could leave the audience with today when it comes to building a business? What it has to do with like being audacious or like logistically? Like, is there anything from your own journey looking back that you're like, I wish I would have done that sooner, or I wish I would have tapped into that sooner?
You gotta be opportunistic as fuck. Like, you gotta leverage whatever you got. So if you have like very little, find a way to make that a springboard. Here's a perfect example. I had 0 leads in the fashion industry with manufacturers. Sewing, I know nothing. Fabrics, I know nothing. Like, I don't know anything. And so I was picking up my mom's alterations the other week, and I was like, wait a second. She knows everything about sewing. Like, let's turn this into something. I'm going to spin it. There's an opportunity here. And I learned so much from that 45-minute conversation. And if you're not looking for those opportunities and you're not curious, then you'll just go into victim mode. Like, well, I don't know anything about anything, and I'm not the smartest person, and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's number 1. Look for the opportunities. Number 2, enjoy the journey. It doesn't need to be so serious. Don't put so much pressure on it. Like, it's a beautiful journey to learn about yourself. and create and just like follow your passion and do it for the right reasons. Are you doing it for ego? If you're going to do it for ego, it's not going to work. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my third thing, start right now. I think people are always waiting for this brilliant moment for all the stars to align, to have all the information. And there is no better time to start than literally right this very second. And how does that like become tangible? What is one small, tiny, little thing that you can do today to push this forward? Is it sending one text? If you don't have the courage to send a text, can you open your notes app and make a list of who you should send to? Can you set a calendar reminder in your phone tomorrow to send the text? Just have some momentum to get it going in small ways.
I love that. No, I love that because I always think about how like, I really truly believe that like as you get older, things get scarier.
Yes.
Like they really do and more intense and like you're just more jaded.
Because you learned more.
Yeah, it's just scarier. And I think the same with like the healing journey too. Like the longer you wait, the harder it gets to rewire, to change, to move out of our habits. Same way with business. And I'm so thankful every single day that though I was scared, I had the audacity to like push when I did, when I was like 22, 23, same age as you. Because now that I'm sitting here and I've like built my cushion, I'm like, oh God, like if I don't know if I have the energy, like I look back and I'm like, the energy I had back then to do what I did, I'm so thankful to my younger self for it because right now I'm like almost 30, like I'm tired. Back then I was getting 5 hours of sleep because I was working so hard and I had the energy for that. I was like bouncing up at 6 a.m., going to the gym, staying up till 1 working, doing it again. I tried to get 6 hours the other day and I barely like got up and I was like unfunctionable for the entire day. And there was this moment where I was like, I'm so thankful that I started when I did. So if you're listening and you're like, thinking about it, like do it now. It's just going to get harder. Business is always going to be hard. It's always going to be hard to start. It's always going to be hard to sustain a business. But like, if you have age on your side, like you have almost no excuse, in my opinion, like do it, at least try. Because then you don't have to go the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you did. Like to me, that's scarier than, failing, quote unquote.
Absolutely. And everything compounds too. So if you put in the effort at 20, when you're at 30, like all that, you'll have compounded. Yeah. So it's a huge leg up.
Looking back at your journey, obviously there's so much to go, but looking back at everything you've been through, how do you see it?
It's just such a joy. It's like life is such a joy. And I just feel so grateful to live life. Like, I know that sounds like as cliche and stupid as possible, but also like, what a joy to just wake up every day and have the opportunity to live and like create something and experience people. And I think I just have a lot of gratitude with just the simplest of things in life. Like every morning I wake up and before I even open my eyes, I just like say 5 things I'm really grateful for. And I feel like that's literally what it's all about.
I love that because if you are someone who is more wired for entrepreneurship too, I'm sure there's people that do love like the corporate world. I would argue there's a lot of people that would be more entrepreneurial if they like took the leap and they took the jump. And I think it would make a lot of people happy who are not happy right now. And I always think about that. Like it is such a joy to like wake up and get to like do what you love. Like that's a privilege. It really, really is. Not just to like, I know what you're saying is like to live life too, but I think it's a huge joy and privilege to do what you love every day. And I think that more people could have access to that joy if they got past like the fear and the stuck. So I'm just so appreciative of you coming here and just sharing and opening up about like what's possible for people too. And yeah, I'm so appreciative of you. Please share where people can follow you.
Oh, yeah.
And where they can find the new brand you're launching. Nat is launching, I haven't even heard as much about it, but a pajama essentially company. I'm very excited to get it and try it on. She'll probably start like 5 more other companies after that. So I'll just have to keep changing the where to find her. But share where people can follow along on the journey and also find the brand eventually.
Absolutely. So the handle's at nat.lucy. 2 I's, and the brand has no name yet. We haven't voted on that. So the story behind this brand is I'm building it with my audience. And so they're my co-founders.
I love that.
And we're voting on everything together on our stories and polls in real time. And our whole differentiator is organic, clean, 100% natural cotton, really cute sleep wear sets. And we're bringing back the nightgown. So we haven't voted on the business name yet, but at nat.lucy on TikTok, Instagram, and yeah.
Yay.
You got this.
So excited. Thank you.
That was amazing, Han.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.